like as somebody who's started going to DC as an adult and really didn't really know the city before then, grew up in the era where all I heard was murder capital of the United States. That was a big thing they would call DC. But also every black city got that label at some point. Detroit got it, Chicago got it. But the idea being that like if DC was the thing that Trump says it is, and that he's selling across the country to Fox News and the Fox News descendants and progeny, it would actually be a more affordable city to live in, and it's not. And you can speak to that too. One of the big problems with DC is affordable housing, and because it has been gentrified, black people have been pushed out of DC and a lot of other population pushed out because they can't afford to live there anymore, which is the opposite of what Trump is talking about.
Yeah, I mean, this is complicated. I mean, here's just a way to illustrate this, right? So when my parents divorced, and again, this is East Capitol Street. I mean, you just go down East Capitol Street now on that little block that I'm talking about, like to the Stadium Armory side. You go down that now, and I don't know if there's a home there under $1 million, to be honest with you. Here's a story for you. When my parents divorced, my mom, as a single mother, moved across the street. So a single mother, there was inventory in the city such that you could move across the street, and that a single mother with 3 kids could afford it. Like it's
Yeah.
again, this is partly of the good side of transformation, but also the other side of gentrification. The reality is Trump's going to do this in every place that he can, right? He's going to tell you horror stories in every place that he can. And I think another lesson that we really need to understand is Trump doesn't know fuck all about this place. He doesn't know fuck all about this place. And here's a very
Yeah.
easy way to understand that. So in his first term, to the extent that he left the White House, it was only to go to his hotel, which I think is like a Waldorf Astoria,
Yeah.
not franchise, but like another one of them. He doesn't leave the White House. What can he tell you about Calorama? What can he tell you about Navy Yard? What can he tell you about Deanwood? What can he tell you about Capitol Hill? What can he tell? He can't tell you anything about any of these places. He has no connection to the people. He doesn't understand any of the history. He doesn't know the neighborhoods. He doesn't know the communities. He doesn't know the people that have been here. He doesn't know the new people that have come here. He doesn't understand any part of it. He is simply a sort of a delirious old man who's being handed these sheets where oh, it's more dangerous than Bogota, Colombia. Folks, I've been going to Bogota, Colombia for 15 years. My wife is from Bogota, Colombia. When I showed her that clip, she laughed. It is the height of insanity to make a claim like that. And I love Bogota, Colombia, but like other
Yeah.
metropolitan areas, it's got real challenges, and
Yeah.
security is certainly a big part of it. But there's no way to dis. And I know coming from a white guy, it's like, who really wants to hear this shit? But like,
That's okay. Luke. You've been vetted through me, so it's fine. You
okay.
can.
But like the reality is there's no way to disentangle the GOP's animosity with DC without understanding the relationship to the black people who live here. And the point I tried to make was in 1957, DC became, in the United States, the first majority black major city. And at the time, the federal government was running it, and all the administrators were, obviously white. And then some of them were in the House District Committee from South Carolina. It was John McMillan, or McMillan, yes, was a literal segregationist. They moved him off, and then they put in a civil rights advocate. And that sort of laid the groundwork for eventual home rule. But essentially they've handed political power, limited, but the political power to Washington D.C. And then you see how D.C. votes. It's deep 90s, all for left wing candidates. And they resent it. They hate it. They've been trying. Jason Chaffetz, when he was here during the Obama years, would we passed some kind of dude. DC passed pro gay marriage stuff in the 90s, and they tried to claw it back. Pro legalization for marijuana, they clawed it back. It's now decriminalized, but they tried to at previous times clawing it back. Assisted suicide, clawing it back. They resent who lives here. They resent the black
Mhm.
population that's been empowered. They resent what is, frankly, what I tried to argue, a civil rights era achievement in giving political power to a previously disenfranchised group. And like, here's another point I want to make. Like, if you understand DC culture, which unfortunately to a large degree has been lost, like punk music here has been lost to a degree. But like, I'm just gonna say this out loud. DC culture is black culture. Like, from the food that you eat, from mumbo sauce to the music you hear, the go on go go, like, and anybody who lived here as long as I have, there's no way to tell me anything other than what I just said is the unbridled truth. Now, again, some of that has been eroded over time, but when you understand all of these forces and when you understand that they've been trying to fuck with us here for as long as I've been alive, and now they're really ratcheting it all up. You realize it's just a scam. It's just a game. It's just to them disenfranchising people that they don't like, and they'll use crime hysteria in order to do it.
Yeah, and I think that when I hear sort of the attack on DC, it feels like it's convenient for him to go after DC for a couple reasons. One, he's basically right there. He can sort of like just go out into he can send people out into the streets around him. Not that he's in the city, as you say, but also it's the fact that DC is not a state. And I think that's the other thing that I've sort of been starting to talk about is like this is DC statehood has never really been a national issue. And this seems like the other way to go on this when you hear Trump sending troops to the street is to go, how can we as a nation push for DC statehood? What do you think? Are you a DC statehood guy?
So it's funny you mentioned that. And this is a bigger conversation, which we don't have time for, but I recently changed my political party to the DC Statehood Green Party because I just don't see. I, I have seen people say that what the left needs to do is more effectively combat Trump's rhetoric by, I think they're saying we should co-opt like some of the premises of what he's arguing as a way to not look soft on crime. And again, I'm happy to talk about particular interventions to
Yeah,
make the city safer. I'm totally okay with that. And in particular, I think youth crime and youth truancy, because that has a spillover effect in education. These are real issues here, and I'm happy to discuss. But I lost track of what I was talking about here. Oh, yes,
just
for BC statehood, yes. But the reality is, if you want to effectively push back against authoritarianism, you have to be empowered with state governance. I don't know how else to say it. And
yeah,
Puerto Rico is the same kind of situation. I mean, theirs is obviously, I think, a little worse, for any
yeah.
number of reasons. But yes, I firmly believe in DC statehood. I firmly believe that these people are. Again, we've been granted limited home rule, but and for example, we don't have any senators. We have one congressman, and they can't even vote on the floor. They can only vote in committee. It's Eleanor Holmes Norton, who has been a I appreciate her. She's been a dedicated servant, but she's pushing 90. There
Yeah,
is just a
yeah,
lot that needs to happen in terms of energizing broadly the left, and I think you know that as
yeah.
well better than I do. But you can see that through this debate over DC statehood. You have to be empowered to fight back, and if you don't have it, what can you really do? So I think getting around and helping people understand DC statehood, it's not a joke, it's not a game, it's not some small cause. It's
Mhm.
about democracy, and it's about democracy in the seat of power of this country.
Yeah, I mean the DC license plates literally say what taxation without representation.
They literally say
I,
that. Yes.
I mean, it's just because you see it, you're like, wow, they just put it on the license plates to let people know. And I think it's more for the tourists than for you all. It's for us to be like, oh wow, they actually are sort of repping the American Revolution that we are taxed without representation. And I would say that like yeah, like when last time I was in DC when I was at the Kennedy Center, I met with the Free DC movement people. And I think that the idea of understanding like it's a national issue, like you said, it's not just a cute issue for DC. And as always, I have to say, when you talk about DC statehood, people like it's too small. There are more people in DC than in the state of Wyoming.
Yeah, we pay
And
more taxes than several states. I have to look at the list here, but Wyoming would be one, Rhode Island would be another one. Like in terms of what we pay, and by the way, DC runs a balanced budget. When I was talking about earlier, is this a success story? This is a well-maintained metropolitan area. Make no mistake about it, a balanced budget, and that is despite the fact that the GOP Congress just this year put out of nowhere, and I mean, even it was so stupid that even President Trump was like, "Please don't do this." Literally, he said this. They put a $1.1 billion hole in the budget out of nowhere midway through the year and forced Mayor Bowser to tap dance. This is what I mean when I say, A, you don't give a fuck about crime here. None of these people care about crime here. They don't care about black youth here. They don't care about the youth centers here. They don't care about any of these things. And they intentionally fuck with us and then say, what crime needs to be improved? Yeah, I got a few ideas about how that can be improved. And it starts with keep your filthy hands off the city.
yes. And also the other thing I point out because people this seemed to sort of skate by a lot of people as Trump sort of was ranting and raving about DC like a grandpa with his watching Fox News. He also then listed other cities that he felt like might need his special federal
Oh, yeah.
attention. Baltimore being one, New York City, Los Angeles, and then Oakland out of nowhere, which is just I was just and I saw the post because April Ryan, who's a reporter, posted about how he mentioned Baltimore, and I was like, oh, he mentioned Baltimore, and I was like, wait, he mentioned Oakland, where I live, and to me, it's interesting because first of all, as many people pointed out, all those are cities with black mayors, and although New York, Eric Adams would probably drink Trump's bathwater if Trump asked him to. But it's still a city that the next mayor, sorry, almost got you.
Almost
Uh,
got me.
the next mayor of New York is likely going to be a guy who Trump is going to treat like a black guy, Zoran Mamdani.
Yep.
And then, but it's like it's funny even to me to mention Oakland and not San Francisco because San Francisco often gets a lot of bad rap for whatever for the doom loop or whatever. But suddenly we used to have a black woman mayor there. Now we got a white man billionaire. So I guess maybe I felt like, oh, so he's done with San Francisco now. That's not the demon. But to me, it's just an idea of like he's preparing because a lot of people are saying this is a distraction that he's just trying to distract from Epstein. But yeah, but the distraction can be bad too.
Yeah.
And
I mean, don't you
you
don't
know,
let me just ask you, don't you feel like it's a trial run for something bigger, right?
yes, yes. Yeah, this is the soft opening of martial law, is what I feel
Yeah.
like. And I think people, yes, he's distracting from Epstein, but it doesn't mean he can't kill people in the process of the distraction or he can't hurt people. And to me, if you're a homeless person in DC right now, you're on the front lines of the blunt end of the distraction.
And my understanding is, I mean, listen, here's another thing about like the homeless in DC. What can I say about it? You know, I wish it was better. You know,
Yeah.
this is one of the things that people want to point to and say, could the city be doing better? Yes. They definitely tried a pilot program during the pandemic to house people, and about a third of that worked. Two-thirds didn't. Where they would give them housing and a stipend and see who they could keep off the streets. Again, some of that worked, some of it didn't, but there's simply not enough resources in the city to handle it. So it's a really basic question for Trump and the federal government, which is okay, we literally don't have enough beds here. I think there's 900 people estimated on the streets, with about, I mean, a third of that in terms of available beds in the city that's left. Where are the rest supposed to go? And these are not answers that they have. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. They're not invested in their welfare. They're just invested in this. Like, well, here's what Trump wants: is from his drive to the White House to Andrews Air Force Base or wherever he's going to be flying out of, is to make sure that looks as clean as possible. Like
Yes.
that is his understanding of what the beautification and the improvement of DC accounts for. Like this is what matters to him. So I don't know. It's a very complicated issue in certain ways, but at the same time, this is, as we indicated previously, this is him trying to see, let's kick the tires on what we can get away
Yeah.
with, and then map that out across the country against political adversaries.
Yeah, and I think that nobody, yes, homelessness is certainly an issue that is not easy to address, but it is not solved by police or the National Guard or law enforcement of any kind. It is solved by communities and social workers and social programs and putting your resources into those types of communities and letting those people try to figure it out. But it's certainly not turning homeless people into criminals is certainly not going to solve the problem. And as I learned on United States, despite what people think, the overwhelming majority of homelessness is economic. Now, once you're on the streets, you may develop other problems like drug problems and mental health problems, but the overwhelming majority of homelessness starts from I can't afford to stay in the home that I'm living in.
Yeah, I mean, I one time here when I was a teenager, so this was in the '90s. I volunteered with the cat. I'm not Catholic, but I volunteered with the Catholic charity who were handing out meals at night for the homeless. And again, this was when the homeless problem was significantly worse than it is now, which is still a challenge, but it was definitely worse then. And we were seeing all the homeless who were sleeping on the grates near Constitution and Pennsylvania Avenue. For folks who have been to the city will know what I'm talking about. And I'll never forget, man, we must have given out, I don't know, 30, 40 meals that day. And I'll never forget, like the first 5 or 6 of them were guys who you could tell either had just gotten off work and they had told us that, or some of them still had their work uniforms on.
Hmm.
And as a teenager, like that was shocking. It was shocking
Yeah.
to see that. I know now there's more information known about this, but I'm just sort of trying to point out once again, putting a $1.1 billion budget hole in the city and then asking us to fix crime, to say nothing of the fact that gun rights advocates have steadily eroded all gun laws. Virtually all gun laws, I should say, in this city as well. And then you're blowing a hole in the budget. And on top of it, it's like, I don't know, guys. Maybe give us a little bit of resources to do the
Yeah.
things that you're asking us to do rather than just condemning the state of things, which you're already exaggerating.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Please consider giving this a thumbs up as well as liking it. And if you want more of my politics coverage, go to the link in the description box for my Substack. Yes, go to my Substack. We might put a QR code on the screen here as well. Tons of exclusives, interviews, chat functionality with a whole different community over there. Tons of fun stuff. Give it a look.